Hello, sixth graders. It's me, Mrs. James, and I have two very special guests with me today. Would you guys like to say hello to?
Hi.
Say hi. Okay, go back to class. These are two people skipping class right now. Bye. Close my door so, Mr. Snyder, don't try to come in here and interrupt me. Oh. Now, I have on this amazing hat today. Why? Because our chapter for chapter 7 is called, page 113. Let's get there. Page 113. The sorting hat. And that is what this is. It's a sorting hat. We don't know what that is yet, but we are going to read to find out. So I'm really excited. Everybody, let's get together and see what Harry is going to experience with the sorting hat. Are we ready? All right. Page 113. And I think I might give you guys these today. Remember these? Weren't these so fun? I got a blue one. I don't want a blue one. I want a red one, but not because I'm like in a gang or anything, just because I like the red one. Yay! All right, here we go. The Sorting Hat, chapter 7, page 113. The door... Wait, we're not on chapter 7 yet. We didn't finish chapter 6. Pause. I apologize. We are going to come back and do page 106. Because remember, the last thing that we saw was we met Hermione Granger. All right. Well, anyway, we'll do that next time. Page 106, Hermione Granger. And then we'll get to chapter 7. All right, top of page 106. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you? She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron and was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't learned all the course books by heart either. So right now what we know about Hermione, because she said that she read all the books for the class, is that she's very, very smart and a very, very strong student. But let's just keep reading. I'm Ron Weasley, Ron muttered. Harry Potter, said Harry. Are you really? Said Hermione. I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and the great wizarding events of the 20th century. Wow, Harry's in all those books? Am I? Said Harry, feeling dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found everything I could if it was me, said Hermione. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around and I hope I'm in Gryffindor, but it sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we better go and look for Neville's toad. You two had better change, I expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boy with her. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, said Ron. He threw his wand back into his trunk. Stupid spell. George gave it to me. Bet he knew it was a dud. George is Ron's older brother, right? Great. Gryffindor, said Ron. I'm sorry, go back. What house are your brothers in? Asked Harry. Gryffindor, said Ron. Gloom seemed to be settling on him again. Mum and Dad were in it too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but imagine if they put me in Slytherin. All right, so far, sixth graders, we have been hearing about houses. We've heard about Gryffindor. We've heard about Ravenclaw. We've heard about Slytherin. Let's just keep those little terms in mind. We're at the top of page 107. Please get there. Slytherin. That's the house you know who was in? Yeah, said Ron. He flopped back.
Please excuse this interruption. All honor roll students, please come down to the library.
Messing up my video. Okay.
Honor roll students to the library. There are things set up for after the ceremony. Students, do not touch them. Thank you.
Anyway. Yeah, said Ron. He flopped back into his seat, looking depressed. You know, I think the ends of Scabber's whiskers are a bit lighter, said Harry, trying to take Ron's mind off of houses. So what do your oldest brothers do now that they've left anyway? Left, probably graduated. Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he'd finished school. Charlie's in Romania studying dragons, and Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts, said Ron. Did you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet, but I don't suppose you get that with the Muggles. Someone tried to rob a high-security vault. Whoa, let's see what that is. All right, first of all, Gringotts is the wizard what? Bank. You are correct. Gringotts is the wizard bank. The Daily Prophet is like a newspaper that comes out every day. I know that you guys don't get newspapers. That's kind of a thing of the past. But imagine like something that's posted on Facebook every day that your parents read. So the Daily Prophet is like the daily news. And what we found is that someone tried to rob a vault in Gringotts. And we know that they said a person would be mad, crazy to rob Gringotts. Let's keep reading. Middle of page 107. Harry stared. Really? What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They haven't been caught. My dad said it must have been a powerful dark wizard to get around Gringotts, but they don't think they took anything. That's what's odd. Of course, everyone gets scared when something like this happens in case you know who's behind it. Harry turned this news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you know who was mentioned. He supposed this was all part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. So these last 2 pages, we've got lots of new words that we're like, wait, what is all this? So let's just keep reading to find out. I don't know any, Harry confused. What? Ron looked dumbfounded. Oh, you wait. It's the best game in the world. Top of page 108. So Quidditch is like, for us in America, soccer or football. Okay? Very, very special. So imagine somebody having no idea what that is. All right, top of page 108. And he was off, explaining all about the 4 balls and the positions of the 7 players, describing famous games he'd been to with his brothers, and the broomstick he'd like to get if he had the money. He was just taking Harry through the finer points of the game when the compartment doors slid open yet again. But it wasn't Neville, the toadless boy, or Hermione Granger this time. 3 boys entered. Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. He was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. Is it true? He said. The saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were thickest and looked extremely mean. Thick-set and extremely mean. Standing on either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Crabbe, and this is Goyle, said the pale boy carelessly, noticing where Harry was looking. And my name's Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snicker. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do ya? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort? I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's. but Harry didn't take it. Top of page 109. I think I can tell who the wrong sort are myself, thanks, he said coolly. Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared in his pale cheeks. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter, he said slowly. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys and that Hagrid, it'll rub off on you. Both Harry and Ron stood up. Say that again, Ron said, his face as red as his hair. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Unless you get out now, said Harry more bravely than he felt, because Crabbe and Goyle were a lot bigger than him or Ron. But we don't feel like leaving, do we, boys? We've eaten all our food, and you still seem to have some. Goyle reached toward the chocolate frogs next to Ron. Ron leapt forward, but before he'd so much as touched Goyle let out a horrible yell. Scabbers the rat was hanging off his finger, sharp little teeth sunk deep into Goyle's knuckle. Crabbe and Malfoy backed away as Goyle swung Scabbers around and round, howling, and when Scabbers finally flew off and hit the window, all three of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more rats lurking among the sweets, or perhaps they'd heard footsteps, because a second later, Hermione Granger had come in. What has been going on? She said, looking at all the sweets all over the floor and Ron picking up Scabbers by his tail. I think he's been knocked out, Ron said to Harry. Top of page 110. He looked closer at Scabbers. No, I don't believe it. He's gone back to sleep. And so he had. You've met Malfoy before? Harry explained about their meeting in Diagon Alley. I've heard of his family, said Ron darkly. They were some of the first to come back to our side after you-know-who disappeared. Said they'd been bewitched. My dad doesn't believe it. He says Malfoy's father didn't need an excuse to go over to the dark side. He turned to Hermione. Can we help you with something? Pause for just a second. Remember, in this world, there were some people, some wizards, who went to the dark side. They followed Voldemort. And what it's sounding like is that Malfoy's family, they followed Voldemort when all this happened. So he's kind of a little evil. But what they're saying is that they were a special word here, and it said they'd been bewitched. What bewitched means is like a spell was cast on them. Do you guys know my little friend Anaya? He's Isaiah's twin brother. I cast a spell on Anaya so that he could be bewitched and not be angry and be happy and smiley. And he is every day. And someone told me my spell's working a little bit too good. But bewitched means that you've taken a hold of their mind. So they're trying to say that they did go to the dark side, but that it was not really them. Ron's dad doesn't believe it for a bit. I don't either. All right, this is now Hermione talking. You'd better hurry up and put your robes on. I've just been up to the front to ask the conductor, and he says we're nearly there. You haven't been fighting, have you? You'll be in trouble before we even get there. Scabbers has been fighting, not us, said Ron, scowling at her. Would you mind leaving while we change? All right, I only came in here because people outside are behaving very childishly, racing up and down the corridors, said Hermione in a sniffy voice. And you've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know? Ron glared at her as she left. Harry peered out of the window. It was getting dark. He could see mountains and forests under a deep purple sky. The train did seem to be slowing down. He and Ron took off their jackets and pulled on their long black robes. Ron's were a bit short for him. You could see his sneakers underneath them. Why are Ron's robes short for him? Because if you guys were going to the store to get new robes, you would just get them to make sure that they fit you, right? Remember, Ron's robes are coming from his siblings or hand-me-downs. His family cannot afford a lot of things, okay? So that's why his robes don't look like everybody else's. A voice echoed through the train. We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school separately. Top of page 111. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thronging the corridor. The train slowed right down and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the door and out on to a tiny dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. First years over there. All right there, Harry. Hagrid's big, hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Come on, follow me. Any more first years? Mind your step now. First years, follow me. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them that Harry thought there must be thick trees there. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toad, sniffed once or twice. You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec, Hagrid called over his shoulder. Just round the bend here. There was a loud, ooh. The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more'n 4 to a boat, Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed into their boat by Neville and Hermione. Top of page 112, last page. Everyone in, shouted Hagrid, who had a boat to himself. Right then, forward! And the fleet of the boats moved all at once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up at the great castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads down! Yelled Hagrid as the first boats reached the cliff. They all bent their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivy that had a wide opening on the cliff face. They were carried along a dark tunnel which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle until they reached a kind of underground harbor where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. Oi, you there! Is this your toad? Said Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people climbed out of them. Trevor! Cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hands. They clambered up a passageway in the rock after Hagrid's lamp, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. Everyone here? You there, still got your toad? Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. They're at Hogwarts, 6th graders. Next chapter will be the Sorting Hat, and I'll be back with my sorting hat to read it to you. Love you guys.